Hello everybody and welcome to Art Smart. Forgive my disheveled appearance today. I've been taking care of my kid, man, and I'm tired. But you know what? I'm not too tired to talk about cartoons. I'm going to show you today this Cartoons That Time Forgot DVD, and I'm trying to get some of the glare away from your view here, and this is Ub Iwerks. Now, this is not a complete collection of Iwerks cartoons, but it's a pretty decent collection. You get 32 cartoons on here, which is not bad for a relatively cheap collection that you can find online. And these are cartoons that have been fallen into the public domain, but have been presented in the best possible form. They found the best prints that they could possibly find. And they also tried to make sure, if at all possible, they used the original negatives to make these transfers. So these are about as good of a public domain cartoon that you can possibly get. Now, Ub Iwerks is a studio that, if you've watched any of my videos before, I have really criticized them quite a bit over time. It's just not a studio that made, in my opinion, very good cartoons. A lot of their cartoons are very lifeless when it comes to having no character animation. There's a lot of recycled animation in using a lot of cycles, and that can get pretty boring to watch. And just honestly, there's just an awkwardness to a lot of these cartoons, as it's clear that they did not have nearly as good of an understanding of how to tell a story with pacing, with characterization, that Disney, who was their main competition at this time, did. Ub Iwerks is a famous animator for being a early person for the Mickey Mouse cartoons. I'm trying to get the right lighting. I don't know, man. I got to work on my setup here. He did a fantastic job of taking Mickey out of his early stages and starting to make him into more of a jaunty, happy little character that was appealing looking. But Ub Iwerks never really got beyond that. His characters are very mechanical, very devoid of any type of really any kind of thinking. The characters are just kind of acting and reacting. So he's very good about doing kind of musical, bouncy steps back and forth with a lot of kind of rubber-hosed animation. But beyond that, Ub Iwerks didn't really know what to tell his studio. A lot of people don't realize that the Ub Iwerks studio didn't really have a ton of influence from Ub after the first few cartoons, because quite honestly, he wasn't that interested in running the studio, as it turned out. He spent a lot of time working in his kind of the back end of his studio on mechanical things, such as the multiplane camera that he was developing for his studio, and working on other mechanical processes under the camera. So he really wasn't all that interested in his own cartoons. Now, that's enough of a background on a studio that I think didn't do a very good job. In general, this particular DVD set, I think, has some interesting ones on it. You do have an early Flip the Frog. You do have a number of the Comi-Color cartoons that he came out with. You do have some Willie Whoppers on here. And Willie Whopper cartoons are not terribly hard to find, but for some reason you just don't see them nearly as often as a Comi-Color. Probably just because the Comi-Color cartoons are in color. You also have some freeform fairy tales on here, like Aladdin and His Wonderful Lamp, which don't necessarily stand out in any way, but it's different, I guess, from Willie Whopper. So it's interesting to look at this. If you're looking at this particular disc set, some nice things that come with it. They do have a really nice write-up here, a nice booklet that tells you about the studio and gives you a little bit of a rundown on basically why the studio fell apart, but also what made it stand out and be a little different. It's definitely a interesting read, and definitely something that I would recommend that you check out if you are able to find this particular DVD. It doesn't have any special features on it, which is disappointing, but that's not a huge deal, because honestly, there's not a whole lot of information about Ub Iwerks out there, and it's not like this particular studio is making cartoons that are great enough to have lots of information about them. They're kind of forgettable cartoons, so I can kind of give them a pass for not really adding on special features. I think that a really nice write-up is good enough. You also just have kind of a nice man, just having a hard time getting it so you guys can see this. It has a nice little write-up here on the back and track listing and things like that. So for image entertainment, I think this is a decent pickup. You can find it online. It looks like it's kind of in the $10 to $15 range most of the time, and that's about what I would spend. I wouldn't spend any more on this. And honestly, if you're not really a fan of Ub Iwerks and the history of animation, I would skip it. If you're just kind of a casual fan, I wouldn't even bother. But if you are somebody that's kind of a completionist about animation history and you just kind of want to learn about different studios from the 1930s, this is certainly not a bad pickup. Very clean films, nice setup, nice DVD setup, and while there isn't any special features, the write-up itself is itself a great special. So I would pick it up if you can find it on the cheap. Other than that, guys, you know, maybe stick to Disney, MGM, Warner Brothers. You know, those are probably where you want to put your money if you're not a huge animation person. Anyway, hopefully this makes you a little bit more art smart. Hopefully I didn't ramble on too long, and you'll come back for more cartoon commentaries in the future. Have a great day. Bye-bye.